All righty, let's get this sucker rolling. Post-game show Friday. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out with us like always. Jay will be back on Monday after his week at the beach with his family. Hopefully we get some really good beach stories from Jay. Or some really good lies about some really good beach stories from Jay. Again, we're in talking season. I mean, obviously talking season hits the gas and pops into the fast lane for real, July 20th at the official headquarters of Talking Season, SEC Media Days in Tampa. Again, we will be there 6A to 6P, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Tuesday is Carolina Day. Shane will talk. There'll be players, all sorts of good stuff. So we'll be there for the whole spiel, man. Beginning to end, all 4 days. We appreciate, obviously, always the folks here in our sales department for getting us some sponsors to help us go. So that is starting up Monday, July 20th. And talking season now is starting to trickle out. And South Carolina, and look, there's 5 billion preseason lists and preseason top 25s and preseason power rankings and analytic models and all this stuff to where your head's going to explode, right? But South Carolina seems to be on that bottom part of the top 25 in a lot of these rankings or models. So they're, despite going 4-8, nationally, there is traction to see South Carolina be one of those teams that bounces back. It's easy to see why, right? I mean, you got Lennar Sellers at quarterback. He's back now. Season number 3 as a starter, season number 4 in the program. You brought in Kendall Briles as your offensive coordinator, and that carries some cachet. It just does. Because Briles is looked at, and we'll go, from like the wheelhouse of the thoughts on Briles, from, wow, that guy's better than average, to, wow, that guy's really good. Either way, it's a guy with a real resume, a real track of success, and I think that carries weight with the people who know the game and are looking to do their preseason forecasting. I think some of the portal additions help South Carolina. I think the fact that South Carolina on the defensive side of the ball has this freakishly talented dude named Dylan Stewart, I think that helps. Again, South Carolina in some of these way too early mock draft modules, you're seeing 3 first-round picks in Stewart, Jacarius Peak, and Lennar Sellers. You're seeing a day 2 pick in a guy like Nick Harbor, another one possibly in Vakari Swain. I mean, this is a roster that has obvious talent. Now what are you going to do about it? So there is some preseason expectation, not as much as last year, obviously, but there is preseason expectation and buzz about a 4-8 football team getting it turned around. Phil Steele has them in that most improved list that typically Phil's right about 70% of the time ish, somewhere in that neighborhood. So a lot of this bodes well for South Carolina to, if nothing else, bounce back, have a winning record, and get back into a bowl game. Now, obviously, it depends. If it's 7-5 and, you go into the Music City Bowl, maybe to some that's underwhelming. Some will go, heck, happy to be back in a bowl game after last year's debacle. But there is talent on this roster. A bunch of veterans through the portal on the offensive line. I think I saw Phil Steele had 126 starts, FBS starts, in the offensive line room. Defensively, you're bringing back a nice core of rotational defensive tackles led by Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy. Obviously, you've got Dylan Stewart coming off the edge. Caleb Herring, the get from Tennessee, the edge pass rusher, I think was a really nice move that we're just not talking about enough. A guy that got 5 sacks in a part-time role. The entire starting linebacker crew returns. Yeah, you lose 3 dudes in the defensive backfield, but I feel like the addition of Scott from Kentucky to play the nickel or play the slot, you might be seeing a freshman in the defensive backfield before it's over with. And Vakari Swain getting a chance to step up. Swain, in his snaps last year, again, he has to get more consistent, obviously, but he had some really nice moments playing outside corner. So it's there, right? And you go back to the offense, the wide receiver room. Phil Steele has a top 15. There's a ton of talent in there. It's just a couple of guys have to step forward to be consistent playmakers. And if the offensive line is better, guess what will be better? The run game will be better. And you have an offensive line coach and Coach Clem that is very well respected. What I loved about Clem is I heard him one of the last times we had a chance to see him get up on the podium. He was talking about footwork with offensive linemen. I had tears in my eyes. Yes, footwork is so important for offensive linemen. Just like a quarterback. It's your feet. So the hope is that Coach Clem can, coach this offensive line up to where they'll at least be holding their own and solid. And with so many veterans that they'll click quicker. And you add Shed Surratt in there and, hopefully you'll have an offensive line that's at least solid. And then you have an offense that'll be a lot better. Your defense should be at least as good as last year, if not a tick or two better. Your special teams, again, just be solid. It'd be great if your special teams can win games, just don't lose games. You got a couple of kickers now where you feel better, hopefully, in the kicking game. So, point is, it's there to see a lot of improvement. Obviously, there's the, it's in Shane's best interest for a lot of improvement. And again, there's not, when we talked about this the other day, it's a combination of things, right? Yeah, Shane's coming off a 4-8, which when you were preseason top 15 and early in the year you were 10th in the country and then you cratered the way South Carolina did, obviously that's not going to bring a lot of happiness. And with 2 of your last 3 years, you had losing records. And you look around the SEC, and I felt like 50 coaches got replaced in the SEC. So right now on the returning coaches, you got guys who are not on any kind of hot seats. And really only 2 guys that it's in their best interest to really have good seasons. And Shane's one, and Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State's the other. I mean, Kalen DeBoer, we got to put that to the side. There's always going to be pressure and hot seat talk at Alabama because everybody wants Nick Saban 2.0. Good luck. Hope that works. Maybe you can clone him. Like that, what was that Michael Keaton movie, Duplicity, back in the day? There was like 60 Michael Keatons in the house. Maybe you can clone Nick. I don't know, but you're not getting another Nick Saban. So we put that one's on to the side. So really, you had 2 coaches who, coming into the year, could have hottish seats. And Shane's would be hotter than Lebby's. So there you go. So it's like a perfect storm of a situation. And the reason we're bringing this up is ESPN, they got South Carolina in their football power index at 25. Or 23, rather. I'm sorry. They are in the top 25 at 23. Which in the ESPN rankings, that would put them in the SEC. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That puts you 12th in the SEC. How sick is that? You could be 23rd in the country and 12th in your conference. That's the SEC. Right? And that's the thing. The SEC, and we get a lot, and Greg McElroy had that Big Ten riff the other day about the Big Ten wins another national championship. That'd be 4 in a row, so they'd be a dynasty, which I laughed for 2 reasons. A, I don't think a conference can be a dynasty, especially one that's that bad in the underbelly. And 2, I mean, the SEC 7 straight championships, 13 out of 17. If we're going to try to come up with a dynasty scenario for conferences, I think that's it. And I think 4 in a row doesn't get near 7. But even though the Big Ten has won the last 3, and we give them their props, obviously, they're not as good a league depth-wise as the SEC. They're just not. We went over this the other day. The bottom of the Big Ten is horrific. The SEC, you just lost a dynasty in Alabama when Nick Saban retired. That's a heck of a void to fill. And right now you've got Georgia, and that's the closest thing to a consistent year-in, year-out championship contender, because they are. And Texas, who last year didn't make the playoff, but Sark's gotten there 2 of the last, 3 years. And that feels like the 2 that are really championship contenders at this point. Yeah, Ole Miss got to the semifinals last year. But it feels like Georgia, Texas. And then you have a bunch of good teams. And a couple of them will jump up and, maybe make the playoff or, have some success. But it's like they jump up for a year or 2 and jump back down. Or, okay, you were here last year. Can you sustain success? Can you be consistent? The SEC still has a bunch of good teams. It's just you're missing championship caliber squad because you lost Alabama. But again, South Carolina, here's the good news. You're number 23 in the power index. That's great. And you're 12th in the SEC. So anyway, that's ESPN's list. Real fast, they have Ohio State at number 1, then Texas 2, Notre Dame 3, Oregon 4, Georgia 5, Indiana 6. Rounding out the top 10, Miami, Alabama, LSU, Texas Tech. Then you have Texas A&M at 11, Oklahoma 12, Southern Cal 13, Ole Miss 14, Michigan 15. 16 to 20 goes Tennessee, Penn State, Florida, Clemson, BYU. Rounding out the 25, Missouri at 21, Auburn 22, South Carolina 23, SMU 24, Iowa 25. So, again, the Big Ten has 2 of the top 4, 3 of the top 6. But my point of the Big Ten, then after that, you got to get to Southern Cal at 13, Michigan 15, Penn State 17. Yep, I believe that's it. And then Iowa 25. Really, again, the Big Ten has one more championship caliber squad. But there's much bigger depth in the SEC with good teams. So, but it's good to know that, coming off a 4-8, it was massively disappointing and obviously can't happen again. But you are looked at this favorably, and that's a credit to Shane and his crew and what they do on the recruiting trail and the transfer portal. And, again, to the athletic department and the university for putting together enough financial resources to keep a Dylan Stewart, to keep a Lenore Sellers, and not have them hit the portal, keep a Nick Harbor, just to name a few. So that's what ESPN's Football Power Index has. South Carolina at 23rd. Overall in the country, 12th in the SEC. And that's, all their analytics and fancy computer stuff. All right, the Major League Baseball draft is coming up this weekend. It's kind of weird. The first 10 picks are on NBC. Then it goes to Peacock. And then it ends up, I don't know, I think on the History Channel. Then after that, it rolls off to MTV2, and it's strange. But there are a few Gamecocks, one from the high school ranks and some of the transfer portal guys who could get drafted. Gamecock Central did a nice breakdown of all this, and we'll get to that next here on the postgame show. The names of South Carolina players to keep an eye on and an ear on in the MLB draft. That's next. Postgame show with Terry Ford. Thanks for hanging as we roll here on the game. We yip about the men's clinic here a lot because, we have a lot of male listeners. And some of those male listeners are getting older. And things just aren't the same. Your zest for life. Pick a room. Living room, bedroom, basement, kitchen. You just don't feel like you anymore. You have that zest for life, that oomph, that what was that one back in the when I was a kid? That va-va-va-voom. I always thought that was really stupid. And it concerns you. Well, why don't you call 803-875-MENS. Set up an appointment. It's a free consultation. Tell Dr. Dan and the staff what's going on with your va-va-va-voom. They'll do a testosterone test, put together a plan specifically designed for you to get back to being you again. Again, it's a free consultation. Just make the call, 803-875-MENS, the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Be popping the vault here in about 15. Right now, though, about 30. But right now, talking MLB draft. It's this weekend. And I've said before, I'm a draft dork. I love the draft. I love drafts. I do. I think they're fascinating. And, I have, look, most folks who are in drafts, a lot of people are into the NFL draft, obviously, and probably the NBA draft, because those are guys the NBA and the NFL draft, those players the most because of college, right? Sure. The MLB draft, like here in SEC country, you would know more of the players in the MLB draft because you watch it. You watch the SEC, and you pay attention a little bit more to college baseball than other pockets of America. I grew up in a baseball town, so we kept an eyeball on the Major League draft. And obviously different from the NFL and NBA draft. Just like the NHL draft is a lot different. But anyway, so South Carolina, there might be some guys really coming in from the portal or the high school ranks who could hear their name in the MLB draft, and we'll see what happens. And we'll start off with Elan Gomez Godinho, or Godinho, I should say. The biggest recruit of the 2026 recruiting class, high school-wise, is a catcher. And he is looked at as a right around top 200 prospect. J.C. Sherbert had a post up on Gamecock Central Big Spur, 206 from MLB Pipeline. Probably looks like if you tried to slot it 6th, 7th, 8th round-ish, that slot value 6th, 7th round and get you almost $300,000. Now, again, this gets a little weird because you also have bonus pool money that gets moved around because all players get slotted in the first 10 rounds. And if Godinho gets drafted maybe in the 6th round and he gets above slot, could he go? Sure. Absolutely. And Gomez Godinho will probably weigh every option, looking at where he does get picked, what the bonus pool money is going to be offered, and then you go from there. Now, according to JC, the Gamecocks are feeling pretty good about how this will end up going. Tyler Pitzer, Tyler Pitzer, back at South Carolina after going to Mississippi State for a year. This one could go either way. Last summer, Pitzer was named the Cape Cod Pitcher of the Year. Scouts noticed. Pitzer, a day 2 selection. Again, this all goes down to where you get picked and how much money you're going to get offered. Miguel Hugas throwing upper 90s, the Mercer transfer. I mean, when you're throwing that kind of heat, you're probably going to go day 2. And according to JC, Hugas would be pretty signable. It just depends, again, where you get taken on day 2 and what is the slot number, what is going to be the bonus money. But you could lose Hugas. Ethan Sutton comes in from South Florida. In JC's post, PrepBaseballReport.com recently named Sutton to their MLB Draft All Undervalued team. And they said Sutton could be a steal in the top 10 rounds. Another guy, fastball hitting upper 90s. Secondary is a work in progress. Top 300 type prospect. Again, a guy that throws that hard, you can see him go on day 2. Especially if he's raw, sort of like Hugas. You're throwing upper 90s and your, off-speed stuff still needs refinement and still needs work. And it'll come down to where you're picked and how much bonus money again. So out of these players, I really feel like Hugas and Sutton could be the ones to go, especially Hugas. And probably, I think Tyler Pitzer, if he gets picked in a decent spot and gets at least, and gets maybe a little bit above slot money or whatever the case in that area, he could go too. The catcher, Gomez Godinho, that one's going to be tough to call. I'll be honest. Look, drafting catchers is a very tough deal. It just is. I'm from Baltimore, obviously. I've seen the Orioles draft Adley Rutschman and Matt Wieters very high. And Matt Wieters was good. He was solid, but he wasn't great. He was a good player. He really was, but he was never the hitter that he was projected to be coming out of college. And people will say part of that is the wear and tear behind the plate. And the other things you do as a catcher. Adley Rutschman has dealt with a bunch of injuries. Rutschman was crushing it and then got hurt. And offensively, he's never really consistently been the same. Despite a guy who checked every box. So point being, is drafting catchers high. I feel like after watching what I've seen, I would not take a catcher in the top 10 ever again. Unless but I know I can't even say unless. Because Matt Wieters was looked at as a special prospect, and so was Adley Rutschman. And either injuries, wear and tear behind the plate, physically, the wear and tear mentally of catching in the majors, whatever it was, neither one of those guys reached their offensive potential. And look, catching, yes, defense is always the most important thing. When you draft guys in the top 5 in the draft, Rutschman was taken ahead of Bobby Witt Jr. You got to get better than average production offensively to go with the upper level ability behind the plate. That's just the way I feel. So my point is that you could see Alan Gomez-Gudiño play at South Carolina. And he could be really, really good. But I just don't know how the drafting of Gudiño will go. And will it be in a spot with high enough slot for him to take the money and run off to the majors? We'll see. But a few of these, I can see a couple of these pitchers. But South Carolina has such a depth of pitchers they brought in from the portal. I mean, losing anyone stinks, especially when you're trying to rebound from 2 terrible seasons. But you got a lot of depth at pitching. So we'll see. But there's a little interesting post, I believe, J.C. Sherbert on Gamecock Central in the Big Spur. Just giving you a little idea of what's coming up for the MLB draft regarding South Carolina. I will bounce back in here on the post-game show with Terry Ford, as we appreciate you hanging out with us like always. We go till 6 here on the Game Network, at the Game TV Radio on YouTube. Next up, as I look at my little rundown list that I need to refresh real fast. A very interesting upset has been picked in talking season. It involves the South Carolina Gamecocks. We're going to get to that next here on the post-game show. Okay, so we're, along with our buddies at Crescent Construction, finishing up giving you the Grand Slam giveaway money. South Carolina only hit 2 slams this past season. So we had $325 left. So we and Crescent Construction decided, what the heck, let's do a Grand Slam baseball hire giveaway in honor of Kevin Schnall being signed as the new head baseball coach at South Carolina. So just go to 1075thegame.com. You click on the Crescent Construction Grand Slam giveaway little picture on the flippy thingy, and then fill it out, hit submit, done. Again, it's brought to you by our good buds at Crescent Construction and here, us at the game. Okay, so Blake Crane, sports talk show host, does a show out of Nashville talking SEC football, obviously. Blake decided he was going to pick one of the biggest upsets of the year, and it does involve South Carolina upsetting the Georgia Bulldogs. Here's Blake Crane.
My third one, November 21st, South Carolina hosting Georgia.
Ooh, why?
Now,
why?
We know the pressure that's on Shane. We'll see how the offensive line is. We did our preview. You're going on the road in Columbia. Could this be the one that Beamer has to win to save his job? We all know sometimes that, I don't read the script. Script reads me.
Les Lenore Sellers.
So that's how it's gone.
Yeah.
Right? It's just.
I knew South Carolina was going to be on here.
I'm telling you, they're good because they're good enough to do it.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't see a spread on that one.
Okay.
I could not find a spread on that one. If somebody does, please.
Probably because Georgia's going to drown
Let
South
me
Carolina.
know. Okay, good. Quote that one. Okay, South Carolina fans.
Yeah, quote that. That's fine.
There you go.
Quote that.
Quote that one.
You can take that one to your grave.
Put it on the Jumbotron
When
before the
Georgia's
game.
down 8 with 2 minutes to go and driving to try and tie it, we'll see.
Hey, Georgia fans, clip that.
Yeah.
Clip that.
Clip that. Clip that. Hey, clip that. Anyway, I think it's interesting. Again, Shane kind of going through the hot seat-ish time, which Blake brought up. South Carolina has talent. The game's at Williams-Brice. Here's the thing about Georgia, though. If South Carolina would beat Georgia, it means South Carolina's pretty good. You're like, duh, Terry. No, I mean like ranked pretty good. I mean like top 10 ranked pretty good, or at least top 15 ranked pretty good. Because Georgia, it's been a long time since an unranked team beat Georgia. You know the last one? Oh, you know. 2019 South Carolina. It's the last time. Yeah, it's 2026. Georgia under Kirby, they do not lose to no one but upper level squads. That's who beats them. Unranked teams, they don't get Georgia. The one thing Georgia does not do under Kirby Smart is let down. They just don't. So if South Carolina does pull off that type of upset, it's because they're a top 15 team, top 10. Which would be really good, because you need that kind of you got to be to that level to take out Kirby's dudes. So that means when you get to the Georgia game, all right, obviously you've beaten Kent State and Towson and Mississippi State and Kentucky. My guess is you probably also won at home against Tennessee. Maybe even beat a very good Texas A&M squad in your house. Probably went to Arkansas and won. Could still lose at Alabama, lose at Oklahoma, maybe beat Florida in the Swamp. You might be a 2-loss team at that time. Because, again, you better be to that level or you just don't beat Georgia. But very interesting little pick there of Georgia losing at Williams-Brice. And again, if South Carolina is having a really good season, you and I know that Willie B will be juiced before and during the game, literally. But very interesting pick. But, I mean, that's where I go back to the opening of the show. When we kicked our first riff, is just, look, South Carolina for a 4-8 football team are getting a lot of love because of Lenore Sellers and Dylan Stewart and the talent still on this team that stayed after last year and the talent that came in through the portal and the high school ranks. it's an interesting combination of expectation coming off a disappointment. Just is. So we'll see, but that's a pretty bold shot there. Take South Carolina in that game to beat Georgia. But again, like we said, South Carolina has talent. The schedule, every SEC schedule is tough to a certain degree. But, like we've discussed, when you get to that Georgia game, slide aside Kent State and Towson. You should be better than Mississippi State. Alabama's got question marks, especially at quarterback. Kentucky has a brand new head coach. That game's at Willie B. Florida's got a new head coach. We'll see. And a quarterback that is a question mark. Tennessee, they've got a big question mark at quarterback. That game is here in Columbia. Oklahoma, they're good. If they're healthy, and if, again, Brent Venables will get out of the way of the offense, that would be a tough. That would be a game you would not be surprised to lose, just like at Alabama. Texas A&M is a very good football team, no matter where you're playing them. You just hope Marcel Reed maybe throws some to you. You should win at Arkansas. So there are 3 games that I look at where it's like, whew, those 3 will be tough to win. Getting to the Georgia game. On the road in Norman, on the road at Bama, and then home against A&M. The other games, depending on some of these toss-up factors and unknown factors, we'll find out as we move into the season, right? Maybe Alabama's quarterback situation with the kid Nelson, the freshman, or Russell, I say Keelan Russell, the freshman, maybe, or redshirt freshman, I guess. Maybe he's phenomenal, and Alabama's offense is clicking, their defense is good, and you roll into Bama and going up against a juggernaut. Maybe Florida, maybe they have a real coach for once in John Summerall, and maybe Florida's really cooking, and you're playing that game in Gainesville. Maybe Tennessee figures out their quarterback situation with the true freshman phase on, and all of a sudden Tennessee's much better than anybody thought. That's what I mean about these unknowns. You just don't know. You just don't. But those are games in a toss-up, you don't know category because you really don't know certain things. Look, Alabama at home, 2 years ago, South Carolina had them on the ropes. And you could say that Bama team is better than this one. Jalen Milroe was the quarterback. So you really should have beat Alabama in their dojo, and you had some turnovers and you let them off the hook. But just very interesting. That big upset pick of South Carolina taking out Georgia. Yeah, it'd be great, right? Sure. All right, time to open the vault, find out what's been going on in the world of sports on this day. One very iconic soccer moment for the U.S. We'll get into that next here on the postgame show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out with us here on the Game Network at the Game TV Radio on YouTube. Hey, time to crack open the vault. We try to dig up an old school one. I remember reading about this because I had no life. On this day in 1934, All-Star game. Carl Hubble was called the king. I believe pitched for the New York Giants, I think. Well, Hubble did something at that time that was historic. Hubble faced a murderer's row of the American League lineup: Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Jimmy Fox, Al Simmons, and Joe Cronin. And Hubble struck them out in succession. It was just a historic moment in the early days of the All-Star game. But the American League came back and won 9-7. That game was in the old Polo Grounds. One more old school. 1951, Britain's Randy Turpin defeated Sugar Ray Robinson in 15 rounds. It was Robinson's second career loss. Dig this record. Sugar Ray Robinson going into that fight was 133-1. I want to give you a pause to let that settle in for a second. 133-1. Now, Sugar Ray Robinson fought way past his prime because he needed the money, and he started losing fights as he got older. But Sugar Ray Robinson, his record, you ever get bored and you're a boxing fan, Sugar Ray Robinson's record's insane. Just insane. All right, we are popping the vault. A little bit of golf. British Open style. 1971, Lee Trevino rebounded from a double bogey on the next to last hole to birdie 18 to win the 100th British Open by a stroke. Trevino had won the U.S. Open a month earlier, fourth golfer ever to win both championships in the same year. Dudes named Bobby Jones, Gene Sarazen, and Ben Hogan at that time. Lee Trevino was a hell of a golfer. He won his share of majors. Obviously, they're joining three icons of the lineage of golf there. But Lee Trevino's never talked about, and he wasn't on the level, obviously, of Jack or any of those guys, but he was a really good golfer. 1976, Johnny Miller shot a 66 in the final round of the British Open to beat some 19-year-old from Spain named Seve Ballesteros. Ballesteros started the round 2 shots ahead of Miller, but then shot a 74. Again, he was 19. Obviously, Seve Ballesteros wanted to have a great career, and Johnny Miller won a few majors as well. 1999, I was trying to pull this highlight, and I just couldn't get a good sounding one. Team USA wins the Women's World Cup over China in sudden death. The Americans win 5-4 in penalty kicks. Brandi Chastain kicked the game winner, remember, then took off her uniform top and did her celebration, and the whole world was like, wow, that was really cool. So the women win the World Cup on penalty kicks over a very good Chinese team. This day in 2010, Spain wins the World Cup 1-0 in extra time over the Netherlands. Spain has won this multiple times. The Netherlands have been to the finals multiple times, but have never hoisted the cup. Another women's World Cup deal in soccer, 2011, the U.S. advanced to the semifinals after beating Brazil 5-3 on penalty kicks after the game tied at 2. This time, Abby Wambach scored a thrilling goal to tie the game in the 122nd minute. And goalie Hope Solo was big between the net. Andy Murray won his second Wimbledon title this day in 2016. It was a big deal in the tennis world, Andy Murray, because the Brits could never win Wimbledon, right? These couldn't. Well, Andy Murray broke a long drought and then won it a second time. And then injuries just cut short his career. This was something, again, I was a boxing nerd for a long time. And then I just got frustrated with the politics outside the ring that screwed up the excitement in the ring. You couldn't get high-level fighters to fight each other because of promoters and networks and all this other nonsense, and I was just like, I'm out. Ironically, the fight, the thing that I said I had enough was the fact that Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao would never fight. And there was always an excuse. I blame both sides, not just one. And I was just like, you know what? If you can't get these two guys in the ring, something boxing fans all over the world want to see, really the number one fight at that time everyone wanted to see, and it was politics and BS. I was like, I'm done. I'm done with this thing. And when they finally did fight, they were both past their prime. Pacquiao was hurt. The fight sucked. But I remember this fight, though, because I was home. I had it on. So I remember this fight. 2017. Manny Pacquiao and Jeff Horn fought in Australia. I watched this fight, and I thought Pacquiao beat Horn. It was close, but, Horn got the home cooking to the judges in Australia. So it wasn't like, oh my God, that was horrific, like the Bradley Pacquiao fight where Pacquiao beat Bradley like a drum, but lost the decision. This day in 2017, an independent review of the scoring of the Pacquiao-Horn fight confirmed the outcome in favor of Jeff Horn. A Philippines government department head asked HBO to review the refereeing and the judging of the so-called Battle of Brisbane in Australia on July 2nd of 2017. So Pacquiao lost a couple of controversial decisions, but this one nothing like the Bradley fight. The Bradley fight, I could watch that 5 times, and every time I'd say Pacquiao smacked that dude all over the ring. HBO said 3 of 5 independent judges who reviewed the bout awarded it to Horn. 1 gave it to Pacquiao, 1 scored a draw. 2021, Ash Barty of Australia won Wimbledon. Barty was a high-level tennis player, the best in the world for a certain time, and then just walked away, retired. Then I had enough. And in 2022, Novak Djokovic wins his 4th straight Wimbledon and record equaling 7th Wimbledon singles title overall. At that point, Djokovic had 21 career Grand Slam victories. All right, there is your vault. 4 o'clock. We will look Phil Steele's yearbook. We've been piecing through it this week. Let's just get down to the nitty-gritty. Look at where Phil Steele picks the Gamecocks in the SEC, how he picks the SEC. That's coming up next here on the post-game show. Terry Ford, thanks for hanging out. We go till 6 here on the Game Network, at the Game TV Radio on YouTube. NFL postgame show, hour 2. Terry Ford, thanks for hanging out with us. Jay will be back on Monday. I totally forgot, and it's on me. I forgot to put Jay's head up. Little 3-shot. Elijah's not here today for the early games. We figured put Elijah's head up there, too. Because better just having the shot on me on the YouTube channel. I do not endorse that at all. No one needs that. All right. So, Phil Steele, we've been picking through the yearbook this week, and we'll obviously continue to pick through it because there's like 74,212 pages of this sucker. We haven't gotten to that point yet where we looked at how he picked the SEC in general. Phil has South Carolina 8th in the league. Again, one of his, in his list of most improved teams for this upcoming season, like we said before, that's usually got about a 70% hit rate to get you back to a bowl game. The teams in front of South Carolina, and we'll go down this real fast. Phil picks Georgia to win the SEC over Texas. Barely. He's got them both at number 1, matter of fact. So really, it's like a coin flip, a toss-up. We've gotten into this. Georgia and Texas are the only 2 teams in this conference that, well, let's explain it better. Texas, if you look at the position rankings that Phil Steele has on both sides of the ball, including and throw in special teams, and you have coaching staff as well, Texas is top 7 in every category. Only one category Texas is not top 4, and that's defensive backs. They're 7th. Georgia, there's only one category. They are not top 5 as well, and that is receiving. They're 9th. Their receiver room is 9th. Everything else is top 3. So Texas and Georgia look, head and shoulders ahead of everyone else. Oklahoma, their running backs are 12th, but they have their offensive line is 6th. Again, you go through, there is no team with every position group is in the top 5. Texas and Georgia came the closest. So it makes sense that they're the first 2. I would pick Texas over Georgia just because I like Arch Manning and his playmaking ability over Gunnar Stockton. Georgia and Texas are both going to be excellent in all 3 phases. Their coaching staff's really good. I mean, now would I take Kirby over Sark? Yeah, obviously. But Sark's an excellent coach. He's done at Texas what I didn't think he would do, and I give him a huge thumbs up. So either one of those 2 win the SEC, we wouldn't be shocked, right? Right. Next on the list is Alabama. Now, yes, does Alabama have talent? Sure they do. They're Alabama. There's still a lot of folks who can play at a high level in Tuscaloosa. Phil Steele has Bama's receiving core, number 2 overall in the conference. Defensive line 5th. Defensive back 2nd. Special teams 5th. But Alabama 9th in the quarterback position, 9th in the running back room, 12th on the offensive line, 10th at linebacker. I just think Alabama, they need that young fellow Russell, the young quarterback, Keelan Russell, to pop. That would change everything. If they can't have a dynamic playmaker at quarterback, which people think Russell could be, if they don't have that, like let's say Austin Mack wins the job. Again, he's fine. But there's nothing in Mack's DNA that says playmaker or game changer. They could be a good system quarterback and put up some nice collegiate numbers. He could be Ty Simpson. Maybe. But if you really want this offense to take off, you need Russell to become what a lot of people think he can become. Highly touted coming out of high school. Because, again, Alabama could have offensive line issues. Alabama defensively looks like they should be good, but linebacker kind of gets dinged a little bit, right? The offensive line could be a problem. Alabama 3rd, if Russell becomes a thing, maybe, but I don't know, man. Also, there's Oklahoma right there with Alabama. So either Oklahoma or Alabama will finish 3rd. The other will finish 4th, according to Phil. Again, with Oklahoma, there's a lot to really dig. Their defense is going to be spectacular. Top 3 across the board in the league. But again, offensively, is Brent Venables going to let his offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, open it up and let it fly? And can John Mateer stay healthy? And if he can, you need to open up the offense and let Mateer do his thing. You do. And that's my big question with Oklahoma. But Oklahoma sitting here is one of the top 4 teams in the conference. Ole Miss then is at 5, along with Texas A&M. I almost feel more confident about Ole Miss and Texas A&M, especially Texas A&M, than I do Oklahoma or Alabama. I could see a scenario on the top of my head putting A&M ahead of both of them. A&M's thing is the line of scrimmage. They got to replace a lot of dudes at the line of scrimmage, especially on the offensive line. But I really like Mike Elko. I do. By the way, someone put up a picture of Elko or a social media post that some entity had put up a picture of Elko and said, you know, what does this guy do for a living? And the answers were hilarious. You know, school teacher. You know, works for, you know, some construction company as a manager. You know, nobody was like football coach. But I'm a huge fan of Mike Elko. I could put A&M ahead of both Alabama and Oklahoma easy. After A&M is Tennessee and LSU. Now, LSU's schedule is really tough. Tennessee's got to figure out the quarterback position and get their defense back after it got smacked around the second half of last year. So those two teams, I see why they're sitting there, but I might put LSU ahead of Tennessee. If Sam Leavitt's healthy, obviously LSU has a huge advantage at quarterback. LSU does have talent on both sides of the ball. I mean, you go across the board here. They are top 7 in every category except special teams, where they're 12th. A lot of talent. Ole Miss has a lot of talent, too. I just don't know about Pete Golding for a season. He was nice as an interim coach. What's he going to be like as a permanent head coach navigating a full season in the SEC? I don't know. Ole Miss, top 6 across the board everywhere except receiver, where they're 8th. Tennessee, a little different. 12th in the quarterback room, 13th on the defensive line, 8th in DBs. I would most likely have Ole Miss and LSU ahead of Tennessee. And then there's South Carolina. And you can make a case South Carolina could bump up ahead of some of these teams because there's so many unknowns. After the Gamecocks, Auburn also they're 9th. Auburn is 9th. A lot of that, can Byron Brown do the same things at Auburn he did at South Florida as a quarterback? Auburn defensively has some question marks in the defensive backfield and up front. Offensive line, I don't know. Needs some help. We'll see. Florida is at 11. Now, usually people pick Florida higher than they should get picked. It's very interesting Florida's picked so low at 11. Obviously, what's going to happen at quarterback, nobody knows. It's a huge, huge deal. Also on defense, there's some issues across the board. So we'll see what Florida does under John Summerall in year 1. Vandy is sitting right with Florida, as is Missouri. I think Vanderbilt's going to be worse. I hope not, because I like Vanderbilt. I like Clark Lee. Poor guy suffered for years and finally got it going in these last couple of years, especially last season with Diego Pavia. But Vanderbilt's replacing so many people. And they're going to give the keys to the kid Curtis, the freshman quarterback. And Missouri is Ahmed Harvey healthy, or Hardy, I should say, after being shot. Can Austin Simmons corral the incredible physical ability that Simmons has and not give the ball to the other team or put it on the ground? Can Ole Miss reload some pieces on defense, or can Missouri reload some pieces on defense that they have to reload on all 3 phases? And the receiver core has to be replenished as well. So, I don't know. We'll see. Then you get to Kentucky and Arkansas. Kentucky, it's going to take a minute. Will Stein's highly thought of. His offensive scheme and system is, very good, but And you don't have a lot of playmakers on your offense. Not yet. It's going to take a few years to get this thing ramped up in Lexington. And Arkansas, I've said this before. I just don't know. You hire Ryan Silverfield from Memphis. Yeah, the last few years at Memphis have been good. Silverfield was on a hot seat there for a bit. But Silverfield's defenses have been below average. That Memphis has won a ton of games with explosive offense. And Arkansas just looks like they're retooling all the way across the board. Quarterback, running back, all over the defense. The defense was a mess. Kentucky could have the worst receiving room in the conference, below average at running back, and the defense has got a ton of issues. And then we forgot Mississippi State at 14. A lot of people think Jeff Lebby's got to get going, or there could be a new coach. I don't think, unless Mississippi State totally craters, which I don't think they will, I think Lebby comes back for a fourth year. I think there's some patience there. Mississippi State is not good across the board either side of the ball, but there's some patience there in Mississippi State. They're not very knee-jerk. Look, Zach Arnett was a disaster. You had to make him the head coach because of the unfortunate passing of Mike Leach. And Arnett just showed you he wasn't ready. That's all. You gave it a try. It didn't work. You went out and got Jeff Lebby. You got to give Jeff Lebby time. I think unless this thing goes totally backwards this year, if Lebby can get Mississippi State to some type of bowl game, then you spring forward to a year 4 where it's like, okay, Jeff, time to get this thing rolling, dude. But so that's the way it looked with Phil Steele picks in the SEC. I'm not as high on Bama as others. And look, and this is nothing. I think Kalen DeBoer is a phenomenal head coach. I just look at Alabama and it all, can Keelan Russell become the quarterback that some people believe he could? And if he does, that changes a lot of things for Alabama. Just saying. All right, speaking of college football, a college football playoff official was recently talking about the college football playoff format moving forward, and we'll get the thoughts of how he felt. Does he feel good? Does he feel like, oh my God, this is a disaster? We'll get to that next here on the post-game show with Terry Ford. Thanks for hanging out with us as we rock until 6 here on the Game Network at the Game TV Radio on YouTube. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging again. Jay will be back next week. But the good news, that's the bad news. I mean, the good news, he'll be back next week. Bad news, he's not here. But the good news, again, is we have Jay and Elijah Campbell's heads in the other studio. So you can enjoy those as we do the show on the YouTube stream. All right, college football executive director Rich Clark was with the folks on 3 and had this to say about the college football playoff format.
It does, but I do think though the commissioners they want to be deliberate, but they don't want to take forever because
they don't want to take a 4-year period of these
that's
questions.
Right.
Yeah.
They know that people are anxious. People want to hear this. People don't want to look at them as being indecisive. I mean, they don't want that.
Yes.
They don't want that. And there's a balance between being deliberate and being indecisive. I don't think they're at the indecisive place yet. I don't think we're there. I think we're still in the deliberate phase.
Yeah.
And they do have a few months to go, so we'll see where we land. But I think we're moving in a good direction. And
again, I mean, look, what is Rich Clark, the executive director of the college football playoff, going to say? We don't know what the hell we're doing. We got no clue, man. All I know is we have these meetings. It's got open bar. Thank God. I can't be sober around these people. Of course, he's going to say things are going in the right direction. We're sitting around with our thumbs in our lower extremities. It's really what we're doing because the SEC and the Big Ten can't agree because they have different agendas. They're both looking out for each other. I know, shocking. Unbelievably shocking. Of course, they're, not coming to a consensus. The Big Ten wants a big, gigantic playoff because they want their TV partner, Fox, to be able to get their fingers in some college football playoff games because that will make Fox more money and the Big Ten more money. The SEC doesn't want to go as far as the Big Ten because the SEC looks at it like, look, man, we get plenty of playoff teams at 12, dude. We're good at 16. We ain't going to 24. ESPN, once the playoff field gets past 11, ESPN loses exclusivity. So ESPN's like, all right, we'll go to 16, I guess. Because then ESPN still has most of the games, right? If you go ESPN, if you go past 12, where they're at, then you lose exclusivity. They'll go to 16 because they still have most of the inventory. But you get to 24, now you got multiple people bidding on it. And then ESPN loses a lot of their juice. And so, as the SEC, they're protecting their partner. And the SEC doesn't want to lose the SEC championship game. I get it, man. That's a cash cow. It's a ratings cow. It's the one championship game that is truly on a championship game type level when it comes to revenue generation and audience metrics. So if I'm the SEC, I don't give up that game either because the SEC makes more money off the SEC championship game than they'll make in a pool of college football playoff money for the extra 4 teams, or the extra, well, not 4, I'm sorry, the extra 12 teams. I do that math in my head, always dangerous. So both agendas make sense, but they both have agendas, and that's why it's not getting done. Again, 16's fine for me. I'm good. Just me personally, you go to 16, just stop, cap it, tap out. Could it go to 24? Sure it could. But eventually, this thing has got to get resolved. If I'm the SEC, I guess my bargaining chip would be, all right, I'll go to 24, but you're going to find a way to make me whole and get me the money that I'm going to give up by pushing aside the SEC championship game. That's kind of what I would say. You want 24? Okay, cut me a check every year to make the difference of the SEC championship game, and we can talk. That's how I'd handle it. But anyway, that's just where we're at. I think eventually it goes to 16. And maybe even 24. I think there's a lot of momentum for 24, a a lot more access for a lot more teams. That second level and third level of college football programs, they get a lot more chance to get a bite of the apple. They just do, a piece of the pie. I'm making myself hungry. All right, speaking of college football world, Ross Dellinger, I should say, Andy Staples, were at the Big 12 Media Days, and they got into a conversation about the Protect College Sports Act, the bill in Congress. And here is Ross and Andy giving their thoughts.
Auburn and Alabama are like, no, absolutely not.
It's
No
a pretty
way, no
strong
how.
letter.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm going to go to the last bullet point, which I think is interesting because I know this has been brought up, and it's certainly been brought up with people talking to us privately. But this is one of the bigger broadsides I've seen to this aspect of it. And it said the bill would, and this is they have a bulleted list of negatives that the bill would bring, according to them. Advanced private equity interests who stand to profit from redistribution of media rights revenue by pressuring institutions to involuntarily pool media rights in a way that punishes success rather than rewarding it. There is, and Ross and I have talked about this. There is a group called Smash Sports. It is a PE group, for lack of a better term, that is pushing this, that has been behind a lot of this.
Yeah, they've been for 3 years now, maybe even over 3 years, meeting individually with school presidents and athletic directors to try to kind of sell a model of pooling of FBS rights. At first, it started more of like pooling power conference rights, and it kind of branched out to pooling all FBS rights. And they contend, that it'll generate 2 to 3 times the current money, that the current revenue. And Cody Campbell is not part of that group, but he also believes a similar.
Well, it also because that gets Texas Tech into the club. Also, just understanding how it works, they're not wrong. It would make more money for everyone if everybody could just sell as one. It's legal monopolies tend to be able to charge higher prices.
Right.
That's true. But if you're the Big Ten and the SEC, they don't believe that particular juice is worth the squeeze.
Well, and if you're the Big Ten and SEC, you feel like you can do your own individual deal like you do now and get more money for your members is sort of where they sit.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the conversation that we've been having, and you hear Ross Dellinger and Andy Staples going into that at Big 12 Media Days, and they started that jumping off point. There was the Auburn-Alabama combination, the combined letter that two schools did saying they weren't down with this bill. Well, the SEC isn't down with this bill. The Big Ten isn't down with this bill. And unless you change some things, that bill is never going to see the light of day. It's not going to work. Because all these schools in the Big Ten and all these schools in the SEC have this thing called, I don't know, people living in their states who will be vocal to their state representatives in Congress. Basically, we think this bill sucks and you better not vote yes for it, or you'll be an ex-representative. There's going to be pressure from these schools or the states, the population in the state. They'll put pressure on these representatives not to vote for this bill. This goes to the other problems with the bill that both sides of the aisle have for political reasons. So it's just not going to happen. But these are the kind of things we're at right now. College football playoff expansion. We're heading down the right road. This bill, it ain't going to work. There's a lot of conversation about it. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. Before we get out of here today, I want to play a riff of Sonny Dykes from this week's Big 12 Media Days. He says something, and look, you can be right and wrong all at the same time. And I think Sonny Dykes has a bit of right, but a lot of wrong. We'll get to it. But circling back to what Andy Staples said, and Andy's correct, not that he cares I agree with him. If you pull your media rights resources and you become one, yes, you will get more money. There's no doubt. And that would benefit the ACC. It would benefit, the Big 12, the Group of Five, or whatever the hell it is now, the group of 55 these days. But who it won't benefit are the two people that matter the most, the SEC and the Big Ten. They can make more money negotiating this the way they do now on their own. So, again, like we talk about with college athletics, nobody's out for the greater good. They're out for themselves, and I understand it. I do. Again, Greg Sankey's job is to do great things for the SEC, not college athletics. Tony Petitti does the same thing for the Big Ten. The Big Ten pays Tony Petitti. His check at the bottom says Big Ten. That's who pays him. He's not employed to make the world a better place. He's employed to make the Big Ten a better place. And Greg Sankey's employed to make the SEC a better place. It's all that simple. So they're not going to be down with this bill the way it is. And the SEC is not going to be down with expanding to 24 because the SEC says that's not in our best interest. The Big Ten's like, that is in our best interest. We can get some of our mediocre teams in the playoff maybe. But again, everybody's looking out for themselves. No one's looking out for the greater good. And we continue all this nonsense. We just do. Okay. Where were we? Strength of schedule in college football. How tough is South Carolina? Is pretty tough. We'll get into that next, and also we'll play you that Sonny Dykes cut that I think is quite interesting because Dykes can be right a little bit and be wrong a lot. That's next here on the post-game show on the game. I'm just sitting here as we're in break. Look at the menu over at the British Bulldog. Man, this is good. Like I said, I had the bangers and mash with the mustard potatoes. Was phenomenal. But there's so many just specialties, like the London loaded chips. You get the English beef eater roast beef sandwich, a Folkestone fish sandwich, King of Clubs, a Bulldog BLT, and these sausage rolls that Jay Phillips goes crazy over. Scotch eggs, chili haddock bites. I mean, just the fish and chips, the Sherwood pasta, the burgers, it's all so good. British Bulldog, go watch the soccer, go get something to eat. Bower Parkway off of Harbison. Our first shot at the traffic this afternoon. We have a center lane blocked accident. I-26 eastbound at Old Sandy Run Road, exit 125. Also, 277 northbound at I-20. Bauer Parkway at Harbison, accident. Also, I-20 westbound at Monticello Road, exit 68. I-26 eastbound Airport Boulevard, exit 113. Slow traffic, malfunction junction. And also our long-term construction around the area. Just, use that little Google lady in your phone to get around it. Post-game show will come back. Hear from Sonny Dykes. Post-game show, Terry Ford. Earlier we talked about South Carolina being looked at in the top 25 of the ESPN Football Power Index. Also, Phil Steele has South Carolina ending the season at number 16 in the country. So there is some expectation, despite the bad taste of a 4-8. But also, South Carolina has a very tough strength of schedule. Not easy, man. The Gamecocks' strength of schedule is looked at top 15, top 20 all over the place. And, most of the SEC schedules are kind of like that, just to be honest. And when you look at South Carolina, their chance, according to the ESPN Football Power Index, of making the college football playoff is almost 11%, which is a higher percentage than their chance of winning the SEC, which is 1.3%. But their strength of schedule, they are looked at as having one of the 15 or 20 toughest schedules in the country. We went over it earlier when we looked at Phil Steele and how he picked South Carolina. And, of course, again, they have a very difficult strength of schedule. But he thinks they'll navigate it enough to get back to a bowl game and be one of the most improved teams. Now, if you look at it exactly, I just found a metric here in Yahoo, South Carolina has the 10th toughest strength of schedule. And the teams ahead of them, of course, they're pretty much all SEC squads. Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Florida, Texas A&M. Only one non-SEC team, Ohio State. Remember, Ohio State plays Texas. Ohio State is the only team outside of the SEC in the top 10 toughest schedules. That's the way it is. That's life in the SEC. All right, Sonny Dykes talked about another little situation that we're getting a lot of in college football, and that's about, unlimited transfers. Now, I thought the old transfer rule was garbage, how a coach could control wherever you transferred. You're not allowed to you want to transfer a boy? You're not allowed to. No, bub, you can't. Why? I had a bad night drinking there when I was like 20. I hate that campus. I hate that school. You can't go there. And you transferred once and you sat out a year. Now we flipped it 180. You can transfer anywhere as long as you do it. You announce it in the portal window, and you can transfer after every year. And you don't have to sit out at all, and you have unlimited transfers. Obviously, it would be nice to have some kind of sanity, meet somewhere in the middle, so to speak, or kind of way. But Sonny Dykes pulls this card that every now and then we hear some of these old school dudes throw out, again, you can be right and wrong all at the same time. You can be right and have the wrong reasons. Here's Sonny Dykes.
The one thing that I'd hope that we get to is the one-time transfer, because not so I can control the players and where they want to go. So actually, the hope is that some of them may actually graduate from college, okay? Because what's happening right now is this. If you're a player, you go to 4 different schools, okay? All these schools are going to find a way to get you into school, progress for your degree. They're going to count hours. They're going to get you in. Well, when you're going to finish in the fall, and now you're probably going to be 40 hours short of graduation. Okay, so guess what? You've made a little bit of money that you probably, you paid 40% of it in taxes. You probably, bought a car or whatever you're going to do. So that money is going to be gone quickly. Okay? Well, that kid's going to be stuck without a college degree for the rest of his life. Okay, and so what's a degree worth? A lot more than what a guy can make playing football for 4 years. How does that affect his state of mind when he doesn't have a degree and his highest earning years in his life are when he's 18 years old? I mean, how would that affect your self-esteem if you woke up every day and say, you know what, I made more money when I was 18 years old than I do now that I'm 40 years old? I mean, what does that do to your mental health? What kind of impact does that have on your life and your future and all of these things? And I'm all about players having opportunities. I want them to have every opportunity available to them. But just like as adults, we have to protect ourselves from ourselves sometimes.
Interesting. Now, is Sonny Dykes wrong in theory? No, I mean, look, 1% of college football players will play in the NFL. That's not much. So when it's all said and done, yeah, most of these guys should get a degree. Absolutely they should. I'm totally on board with that. That way you have options in life. And you always want as many options as possible. If you can't play professional football, you want options. And having a degree helps you open doors. It just does. So Sonny Dykes is correct there. A degree is not a bad thing. But the whole, we need to protect these young men. We should be able to guide them and mentor them. And basically, we're going to go back to what it used to be without you having to sit out here. Okay, Sonny, these are adults by the law. And, you are hindering adults being able to, live their lives and do what adults want to do, and you haven't gotten their permission to do that to them. And you're also limiting their potential ability to earn money as an adult, and, well, guess what that's doing? Yeah, you're breaking antitrust laws. Now, if you want to sit down and collectively bargain with the body of college football players and put out some kind of one-time transfer, I guess, rule, and try to couch that rule to make it good for them to agree with you, or in return for one-time transfer, you're giving them something like wonderful health care benefits for X amount of time in their life because they played collegiate football, so then maybe they will agree with you and go with that. That's called bargaining. That's what you have to do. The days of you telling young people what to do are over. It's illegal. My son might transfer college. He didn't have to do 1 year and only one transfer. Transfer as many times as he wants. All these multiple transfers does hurt you, Sonny, in building a roster. Just say it. It's okay. I know, but if we want to stop the kids from transferring, they can only transfer once. How about head coaches can only change jobs once? Because you know what, Sonny, that's good for continuity for the young people, because the young people, when they're recruited by one coach. And if they see a coach leave, what does that do to their mental health? You threw mental health out, Sonny. What does it do to their mental health? They came to play for you. You came into their living room and told them you told their family you'd take care of them, and now you're taking off for a better family that's giving you more money. So maybe coaches should only be able to change jobs once. What do you think, Sonny? Huh? It's all about the kids, right? And their self-esteem and their mental health. So Sonny Dykes, in theory, is right that a degree is a good thing. But all the other stuff, you can be right and also be wrong at the same time. All right, post-game show, Terry Ford, thanks for hanging out with us. World Cup updates. We got, I believe, Spain and Switzerland rolling right now. We'll let you know what's going on here on the game, a World Cup that is sponsored by our good buds at the British Bulldog. All right, British Bulldog sponsoring our World Cup update. And I already screwed it up. Didn't even start it yet. Belgium is playing Spain. I said Switzerland because I don't know. I just felt like it's a good thing to say at the time. Spain and Belgium going at it, tied at 1 in the 87th minute. Winner, I believe, gets France in the semis. So Spain and Belgium, you could roll off right now to the British Bulldog and go watch the rest of the game, grab something really good to eat. Tons of beverage options, just saying. That's Bower Parkway right off of Harbison. All right, so we got 1-1 with Spain and Belgium. And again, look, the feeling is by people who really know the sport, which I'm not one of them, and Spain just scored. It just flipped as we were sitting here. 2-1 now, Spain leading Belgium in the 88th minute. Spain, France, Argentina. That feels like the three. And then whoever wins in the Norway-England tilt. But those three, and France feels like they're the best team of the bunch. But the one thing you are getting with this World Cup at the end now is this isn't the first one. It happens a lot. You're getting the best teams. You're getting the superstars of the sport. And that's where you're at. With, that 12-year-old in Spain, Messi in Argentina, Holland in Norway, Harry in England. Everybody's bringing some superstar power to the table. Mbappe in France. So you're getting the stars. And if Spain holds on, which a lot of people think they will, and they'll move forward, and they get France, should be a titanic game. Argentina, Switzerland, Argentina should win. And Norway, England is looked at tight. Could you get a Harry Kane moving on? Maybe. Could you get Holland moving on from Norway? Sure. Feels like Messi will advance to the semis, even though Argentina's been playing with their food, man. Got to be careful. So that's where it's at right now. Spain leading Belgium 2-1. The winner rolls off to the semifinals of the World Cup. All right, and I get our World Cup update brought to you by the British Bulldog. Our good buds there. And you don't have to go there just for the World Cup. The food is that menu's there all the time. I mean, they have soccer on the TVs for different leagues, Premier League, Champions League, whatever. But the food and the beverages, they ain't going anywhere after the World Cup. Or not? Just saying. Just throwing that out there. Give you a little heads up. And obviously, this has been the TV ratings for the World Cup, especially the United States games, have been great. A part of it is the games were in the United States, and you had a little home field advantage. A lot of folks were invested in watching, just having it on or watching it, or just getting the feel, just being part of the event. I say this on the show all the time, we love events, man. We really love events. And this is an event in America. U.S. got to the round of 16. We were in. We've got people from other countries running around our country going to bookies, going to Waffle House, Walmart. It's been fun. Yeah, the U.S. got beaten. They got embarrassed. And obviously, the people that are invested in soccer in this country aren't happy. Us as Americans hate to see our team get beat, because it's always fun to have them continue to advance. But the World Cup itself, it seems like it's had a good vibe and a good feel here in America. The TV ratings have been good. And the TV ratings also are good because finally somebody learned how to, learn how to gauge audience in America when it comes to watching sporting events. Nielsen's gotten better at it. So we see all sorts of sports setting records in viewership now. And plus, let's face it, live sports is the one thing now everybody makes appointment television. Everything else in this world is on demand. Just saying. So it's been a good World Cup overall for this country hosting. We're being part of the host along with Canada, Mexico. All right, there's a World Cup update brought to you by the British Bulldog. 5 o'clock news sponsored by our good buds, Integrated Media. Coming up next here on the post-game show with Terry Ford. Appreciate you hanging out. Whether you're on the YouTube channel, at the Game TV radio, you're on the app, the 107.5 The Game app, you're just listening old school on the radio. Maybe you're in one of our affiliate markets, Florence, Myrtle Beach, Charleston. Thanks a lot for hanging with us. We go till 6 on the game. Alrighty, still a few accidents. I-26 eastbound at Old Sandy Run Road. That one's still getting cleaned up. I-77 southbound at Shop Road has just popped up. That's exit 6. Hughie at Blossom in Columbia downtown. Also Decker Boulevard at Faraway Drive. Or like the crossroads there, Faraway Drive and Crossfield Road. Malfunction Junction, yeah, still a problem. Construction, Broad River Road at I-26 and Dutch Fork Road. Also I-20 between Sunset and Bush River. And I-26 between Bush River and Old Sandy Run Road. 5 o'clock news sponsored by Integrated Media coming up next here on the postgame show. 5 o'clock news sponsored by Integrated Media here on the post-game show. A lot of baseball notes to get into around the majors. All-Star game obviously is coming up. The American League All-Stars, we went over this the other day, kind of lame. There's injuries and underachievers. It has not been a good year in the American League. Well, the National League took a hit. Shohei Ohtani scratched from his scheduled pitching start on Friday due to continued irritation in his left knee, according to the Dodgers. Ohtani will still serve as the Dodgers' DH for their weekend series against the Arizona Diamondbacks, but he will not join the rest of his teammates at the All-Star game. Now, again, does that sting for Major League Baseball? Sure. Ohtani's a thing, man. Best player in the world. Instead, Ohtani will have some intravenous, fluids used on his knee to put him in the best position for the second half of the season. So no Shohei Ohtani at the All-Star game. This all started June 11th when Ohtani left a start against the Pittsburgh Pirates early because of irritation in that knee. That's the same knee that underwent surgery to address a congenital condition in September 2019. Shohei Ohtani's 32 years old now. Just had a birthday, man. Happy birthday to you. He's also been dealing with a blister in his pitching hand, tightness in his right bicep. Those issues have gotten better. Ohtani, by the way, you want to hear numbers. 290 batting average, 405 on base percentage, 534 slugging, and OPS. The average, we talked about this, was it yesterday? I can't remember that far back. The league average OPS, which is on base percentage and slugging percentage, really the two metrics that I look at for offensive performance for players. The Major League average OPS is like 720. Shohei Ohtani's is almost 940. Ohtani has 20 homers, has stolen 6 bases. That's offensively. You ready for this? As a pitcher, Shohei Ohtani is 8-2 with an ERA of 1.79. It is so disgusting how good those numbers are. It's historic. And look, man, I am not a prisoner of the moment. I'm not. But and look, I know that us old school baseball fans hold dearly to the players we grew up with. I understand, I do. My favorite baseball player, again, I grew up in Baltimore, Eddie Murray. 500 home runs, 3,000 hits. Sort of rare. Loved Eddie Murray. But I can be objective enough to say a certain player in today's world might be better. Murray was also a hell of a first baseman defensively. Just saying. But I have never in my life seen something like Shohei Ohtani. Ever. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. And so, how about Babe Ruth? Well, I wasn't around for Babe Ruth. I know I might look old on the video, but I wasn't around for bleeping Babe Ruth. I was around for the John Goodman movie, which, by the way, was god-awful. So I didn't see Babe Ruth. And the numbers of Babe Ruth, because, again, Babe Ruth became just strictly an offensive player, were nothing like Shohei Ohtani. Yeah, Ruth was a great pitcher in the World Series. He had some World Series records. Ruth could pitch. But what we see from Shohei Ohtani, it's incredible. It's just incredible. Those numbers, he has a 940 OPS and an ERA of 1.79, and he started 14 games. Come on now. It's unreal. The trend continues in young players. J.J. Weatherholt of the St. Louis Cardinals has had a nice year as a rookie. Weatherholt has signed an 8-year, $112.5 million contract extension. A lot of people think Weatherholt is the favorite for the National League Rookie of the Year. That's really great. It's July. Well, we wait a couple months. But Weatherholt has had a nice season. I mean, he has. This is a trend, though. And I'm not saying it's a bad trend. It's just a trend. This comes up every so often. We saw it with the Indians did this back in the 90s with their core players. We see it every now and then where teams will sign young, high-level prospects or young players who pop their rookie season or second season. It's been done. Other rookies, Kevin McGonigal, Connor Griffin, Colt Emerson, Cooper Pratt. Now, here's the one thing all these have in common. Now, follow me. You get J.J. Weatherholt of the St. Louis Cardinals. You get Kevin McGonigal of the Detroit Tigers. Connor Griffin of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Colt Emerson, Seattle Mariners. And then finally, we discussed Cooper Pratt of the Milwaukee Brewers. None of those teams are big market teams. The closest to a big market team would be the Cardinals. But they're not on the level of like the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Mets, the Red Sox, the Cubs. They're just not on that level when it comes to, money. So these franchises are locking up these young players to these deals that really are team-friendly in a way, but it's also player-friendly because you're wiping out the first 3 years where you're making that league rookie minimum stuff until you get to arbitration. So this is really, you're making a heck of a lot of money by getting a guaranteed contract, paying you, like in Weatherholt, 8 years, $112 million? You're getting, 12, 13, 14 million a year. And you're wiping out the first 3 years. So you're getting paid right off the jump. In return, once you get past those first 3 years, these deals can become team-friendly, especially once you get past the arbitration years. Because, again, free agency is depending on how your deal is 6, 7 years. So these help the player now and the team down the road. And we're seeing a lot of these. And, again, Weatherholt has had a nice start to his career. All right. Former Lions corner Terrion Arnold does not need to wear a GPS tracker as a condition of his release. A Florida judge ruled today, allowing him to continue to work out with NFL teams in an effort to get re-signed after being cut by the Lions. Arnold turned himself in on June 24th in connection with a February 2026 kidnapping and robbery incident in Tampa. He's currently out on $1 million bond and is subject to home confinement with the exception of work and legal appointments. And of course, his lawyer will say Arnold did nothing because that's what your lawyer's supposed to do for you, right? Now, he's had inquiries from the Jets, the Seahawks, the Texans, the Colts. Because, look, let's just be honest. An NFL team goes, you committed armed robbery. Okay, any good? Just don't steal stuff from our complex. Don't come in at gunpoint and steal things from our complex. Again, teams are like, okay, committed armed robbery, $1 million bail, whatever. We'll get the facts and conditions. But if you're worth the crap, we'll take a flyer on working you out. That's why teams are taking a look at him. I mean, from the crappy Jets to the defending world champion Seahawks to the playoff, to a playoff team like the Texans to a team that sniffs around the postseason at times like the Colts. So, very interesting. I mean, I'd work him out, kick the tires if I needed a DB. Absolutely. Give a thumbs up to a former Gamecock. Mike Boynton has agreed on a 2-year contract and will not be the interim head coach of Michigan, but the head coach of Michigan. But here's the caveat. Only 1 year is guaranteed. This is very simple. Dusty May wins a national championship, puts together a roster for this year, and then pieces out to be the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA. Michigan's like, huh? You don't really have time to put together a coaching search. Mike Boynton, who obviously was the head coach at Oklahoma State, helped put this roster together. Players like Boynton, what the heck? Why not give it a whirl? If Boynton has a really good season and the Wolverines go deep in the dance, then you give him a second year. If it doesn't go as well as you want, it was 1 year. You got nothing guaranteed on year 2. And you move on to find another head coach. And Mike Boynton gets an audition. And if nothing else, what he does is he can showcase himself to another school if Michigan doesn't want to keep him. Remember, Texas had this issue. Chris Beard lost his gig at Texas because of what he did off the court, and he should have lost his gig, my opinion. And Rodney Terry stepped in, and Texas got to the Elite Eight. Well, you're kind of stuck now. The interim guy got you the Elite Eight, so you hire him as the permanent head coach. Terry lasted 2 seasons. It was very underwhelming. You kick Rodney Terry to the curb, and you go get Sean Miller. You know, Mike Boynton he'll get an opportunity, and if he can have a good season, the second year of that contract's guaranteed. He might even get an extension if it's a really good year. But then you're looked at like, all right, what can you do for the next couple of seasons? And if you can build upon this, we'd love to keep you, like long term. If not, then we move on and try to go out and get another guy with a high-level resume. So Mike Boynton's got a chance to audition for a year to show he can be the head coach at Michigan, or he can at least audition for others. I mean, so yeah, it's a 2-year deal and only 1 year is guaranteed. But for Mike Boynton, who was not getting a head coaching job, he was still going to be at Michigan as an assistant. This is a good thing for him. He gets a chance to, resurrect his head coaching career after the way things ended at Oklahoma State. All right, so good news for a former Gamecock. All right, it's 5 o'clock news sponsored by Integrated Media. All right, coming back, Jake McKeever from College Baseball Central was on the Extra Point with Tyler and Jack talking Gamecocks in the MLB draft, the hiring of Kevin Schnall, Oklahoma winning the national championship. We're going to fire that up as part of the Gamecock Notebook next here on the postgame show on The Game. Post-game show, Terry Ford, thanks for hanging out. Gamecock Notebook. Again, Jake McKeever from College Baseball Central hopping on with Tyler and Jack Veltri earlier, talking Gamecocks in the Major League Baseball draft, talking MLB draft, also getting into Kevin Schnall being hired as the head coach of Carolina and Oklahoma, winning the national championship. And that's where everything starts, as Tyler asked Jake McKeever about Oklahoma and their surprising dog pile in Omaha.
Well, first off, I thought I was higher on Oklahoma after their first weekend in Dallas, and I don't think anything kind of prepared me for Oklahoma winning the national championship in the way that they did. I mean, it was truly, I think, the most improbable run that we'll ever see in college athletics. I mean, this is a team that was sliding the back half of the SEC, and then they strike lightning in a bottle, start 2 freshmen in the regionals, and ride them all the way to the national championship. I mean, it was just an insane run. They got production from guys that we had thought that they were going to get production from all year. They all just kind of clicked at the right time. And, you know, it's got to be pretty frustrating for some of these teams that haven't won national championships, like the Florida States, the North Carolinas, the Texas A&Ms, that, you know, this is Oklahoma's 3rd title, and they just got hot at the right time. That's really all it takes.
Jake, what are your thoughts on the Kevin Schnall hire for South Carolina? I know it has been a little bit since we last spoke, but, yeah, what are your thoughts on that hire?
I mean, initially it was an absolute home run hire, and I think that it just shows the commitment from the administration, because when it got offered to Paul Manera, I mean, there were a lot of guys that turned that job down. I know Elander kind of did, Schnall the first time. So when they came back 2 years later with an enticing package, I think that really just shows what the administration is bought in. And, you know, Kevin Schnall has really returned the favor in the last month, trimmed a lot of the fat of that roster, you know, brought in some really talented portal guys. And I know that we said it last year because they had a really expensive portal class, but it seems like the development's kind of a bigger part of this year. They're not just chasing kind of rankings. And it's hard not to be excited about what Kevin Schnall's building at South Carolina in such a short time.
Jake McKeever of College Baseball Central joining us on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Again, MLB draft coming up this weekend, and there are several guys here at South Carolina that have the potential to hear their names called, and will have the decision to make on whether to pursue the pros or come back to college, including several guys from the transfer portal this offseason. When you look at the potential for South Carolina here, what stands out to you about names we'll get here called this weekend?
I think what just really stands out to me is just how many backups South Carolina kind of went in, and how many kind of exit plans they have should guys get drafted. It feels like they're almost using like a Georgia method, if you will, where they're trying to get a lot of mature guys that'll make it to campus. But it'll be really interesting because a lot of these NIL packages, I know when we talk to scouts and stuff like that, the past 2-3 years, it's been like a very, very real concern. And, you know, guys that went in the later rounds in years past that probably would have signed are now kind of more enticed to go back to college for another year. I mean, just in the last 3 years, Henry Ford's a name that really kind of stands out that went back to school, Ryan Prager. So there's a lot of, I guess, not worry isn't the right word from the MLB side, but I think it shows that a lot of these teams, and especially some in the SEC, are willing to compete. So just because a guy's name is drafted kind of late doesn't mean they're necessarily going to sign. I mean, they have some pretty enticing NIL packages waiting for them.
Jake, South Carolina has an incoming freshman catcher, Elaine Gomez Godinho, who could potentially decide to go pro. At least, you know, that's what, you know, the rumor is out there, that, you know, he's a guy that has long been viewed as someone that is a potential draft risk. And, you know, if he's picked high enough, maybe he ends up going. So I'll ask you about your thoughts on the potential of that. But also, there are a lot of catchers in this draft. A lot of them, when you look at rankings, are college guys. Is there any merit to the idea that teams may end up picking college guys over the high school guys when it comes to catchers?
I think it really comes down to drafting philosophy, so stuff like that. I mean, there are certain teams that just absolutely fall in love with prep bats. I mean, the Pirates are one that really kind of comes to mind, and then there are other ones that are more looking for plug-and-play guys, like the Angels and stuff like that. So I think it really comes down to kind of drafting philosophies. College bats have always been seen as kind of the safer bet versus the pro bat is more boom bust. I mean, I was talking about it with one of my scouting friends, and it's like, yeah, for every one Connor Griffin, there's 30 Cam Colliers that can't get out of, you know, certain levels. It's just littered with guys that are high school ones like that. So I think that's always kind of the interesting argument, is who kind of values what. Because I think after the top 10 it's going to get kind of crazy where you'll see some of these guys that, Kylie McDaniel has in the 60s will go super early, or Joe Doyle will have in the 40s that'll go super early. I think it's always really interesting this time of year too. And then the other thing too is a lot of these MLB teams kind of have their draft rooms solidified, so they kind of go under lock and key. And the flip side of that is, they put out like a lot of misinformation. Like I remember when Paul Skeens was coming out, a bunch of the stuff that I was hearing from scouts was like, oh, his slider doesn't have enough vertical break. So they were trying to kind of play these games to get guys to fall. So it's kind of the always interesting thing about this week is they'll put out a ton of stuff that ends up being just utter nonsense, just to kind of try and get guys to fall certain ways.
Jake McKeever, College Baseball Central, again joining us here on the AAA Heating Air phone lines. As expected, a lot of names in the SEC projected to go pretty high in this draft. Do you have a favorite to go off the board first from the SEC?
I think the favorite from the SEC for me has to kind of be, if we're going by prospects, Grady Emerson, the Texas commit. He's in Texas in name only. I think he's going to be one of the first bats taken. But I think a lot of the scouts I've talked to have really fallen in love with Tyler Bell when they've kind of done their deep dives. It's a switch-hitting shortstop. It's a little bit older, so he's a draft-eligible sophomore, battled some injuries and really kind of showed some resiliency. And he has a really, really high barrel rate. He lived up to kind of the hype, if you will, which is easier said than done, as we've seen with like Justin LeBron or somebody like that. I think Tyler Bell is going to be one that's taken off the board. Chris Sakopian is another name that we keep kind of hearing. It wouldn't surprise me if, a scout kind of falls in love with that. To me, too, I think Ace Reese just screams Cleveland pick, the way that they've kind of gone the past few years with this boom-bust, high strikeout guy, but high ceiling guy that just kind of screams Ace Reese to me. So there's a lot to really like kind of in that meat of the SEC, if you will.
Let me ask you about one more South Carolina guy here with their draft candidacy here. I know it's hard to forecast where guys are going to get picked, if they ultimately even get picked, especially as we get into the later rounds. But I feel like a name to keep an eye on is probably Connor Schaus, the Texas Tech transfer, viewed as one of the top transfers in the portal cycle here. What are your thoughts on him, first off? And, what do you feel like his odds are of getting to campus?
Well, first off, I think he's a phenomenal player. I was very fortunate enough to watch Texas Tech this season, and while their record wasn't the best, I think the one thing that really stood out to me when I talked to Big 12 coaches is just how much they mashed. And I think Connor's kind of a big reason for that. There's a few other guys that have since transferred out, but that was never the issue with Texas Tech, was that they couldn't hit. You're looking at a guy, I hate to just read off stat lines, but it's insane. 353 in 53 games, double-digit home runs. Any coach in the country would want to have that. I think the draft, it really kind of gets a little bit tricky when you get to guys like him, because I think that he still has a lot of meat on the bone. He was at Texas Tech, a Big 12 school. He could kind of have a Henry Ford type season where it's like, yeah, the guy probably should have been drafted, but he gets to come back and have another year and excel in the SEC and be an SEC guy. I think that that's one of the things that's really an underrated aspect of guys getting back to campus, is that they get to be college kids. They get to be the big man on campus. They get to play in meaningful baseball games, because as much as we all love pro baseball, there's a lot of guys that get drafted late that never play a game of meaningful baseball again. And I think that that's a really underrated aspect that a lot of people don't think about, is, you get to compete in the SEC at South Carolina. You get to go to these insane environments. You get to play at Founders when it's kind of coming back under Schnall. I think that that's kind of a truly underrated thing, and it really wouldn't surprise me if some of these fringe South Carolina guys and even others in the SEC make it back to campus.
And there we go. Jake McKenna from College Baseball Central giving us a lowdown on a bunch of different things in the world of baseball. From the Kevin Schnall hiring to the Major League Baseball draft, the Gamecocks possibly getting drafted, to Oklahoma winning the title. Jake hit it all in that little conversation with Tyler and Jack. Drive around the SEC, just see if there's any news from the conference as we get ready for SEC Media Days. And we'll go back some nuggets from Phil Steele about the incoming SEC freshman as well. That is next here on the post-game show with Terry Ford. Appreciate you hanging out with us on the Game Network, at the Game TV Radio on YouTube. Our 5:30 check on the traffic on a Friday. By the way, I hope you're enjoying your weekend, or will enjoy your weekend. All right, a few accidents. Still have that one at Hugie and Blossom in downtown Columbia. They're cleaning that up. Same thing with the I-26 westbound accident between I-126, that's exit 108A, and St. Andrews Road, exit 106. Decker Boulevard at Fairway Drive, that one's still also getting cleaned up. And I-77 southbound at Shop Road, exit 6. Come back and drive around the SEC next on the game. All right, time for a drive around the SEC. Phil Steele. He is top 500 freshman. We went over South Carolina's 10 freshmen on this list. But some of the freshmen in the SEC that we have not talked about that you'll be hearing these names before it's all said and done. We'll start off with quarterbacks. Jared Curtis is the number 2 ranked quarterback in Phil Steele's top 500 freshman, the number 2 ranked quarterback. In case you're wondering, Kassan Henderson of Houston is number 1. Jared Curtis, number 2 from Vanderbilt. Faison Brandon at Tennessee is ranked number 4. Well, first of all, Jared Curtis, it seems like, unless there's a huge upset, will be the starting quarterback at Vandy this year. Faison Brandon could end up being the starter at Tennessee as a true freshman, so just keep that in mind. Bo Bentley is the number 8th ranked quarterback in Phil Steele's on Phil Steele's freshman list, and then Landon Duckworth. So Landon Duckworth ranked as the 4th best freshman quarterback in the SEC coming in this year. But 2 of these guys could start with Jared Curtis at Vandy and Faison Brandon at Tennessee. Running backs, Xavier Crowell for Alabama, number 2 ranked running back, according to Phil Steele. KJ Edwards, Texas A&M, number 3. And Jonathan Hatton, Oklahoma, number 5. Wide receivers, the number 1 ranked wide. Oh, let me get back here real quick. Savion Hyler at Michigan is the top ranked running back, according to Phil Steele, a freshman. Chris Henry of Ohio State, yes, the son of Chris Henry, who was the wide receiver. First of all, West Virginia, though, with the Cincinnati Bengals, who obviously had a very tragic life. His son, though, is ranked the number 1 rated wide receiver, freshman wide receiver in the country from Ohio State. TK Keys is ranked number 2, Tennessee freshman. Cedarion Morgan of Alabama is number 3. And then Jermaine Bishop, Texas, number 7. Davian Gross, Florida, number 8. That's the SEC receivers in the top 10. Offensive line, Darius Gray is the top-ranked SEC offensive lineman as an incoming freshman. The other offensive lineman from the SEC in the top 10, John Turtine at Texas, is in at 7. That's the next one. Defensive line, Lamar Brown. You've heard of Lamar Brown, most likely. Highly rated high school prospect. He will be at LSU. He's ranked number 1. Texas has Richard Wesley at number 2. Bryce Perry Wright, Texas A&M at number 6. Linebackers, again, Texas, Tyler Atkinson, number 1. Xavier Griffin, Alabama, number 2. Tennessee has number 4 and 5, T.J. White and Brandon Rouse. And then Jaquez Wilkes at Auburn, number 8. Defensive backs, Alabama has number 2. Jareen Edwards is sitting at number 2. Brandon Arrington, Texas A&M, number 4. Alabama has number 5 as well, Jordan Edmonds. Mississippi State with Braylon Womack at number 6. And Jazavian Currents, number 9, South Carolina. Then Joel Wyatt, number 10, from Tennessee. So that's some of the freshmen you might hear of as the season goes along. Phil Steele ranks them. Speaking of rankings, we talk about the MLB draft. ESPN's mock draft, they have 2 rounds here. I'll give you every pick. I would not do that to you. In case you're wondering, Rock Chowalski at UCLA, the shortstop, a lot of people think most likely will end up being number 1. Look, Major League Baseball draft is different. If you keep up with it, you know it. It's a lot about slotting, slot money, bonus pool money. Sometimes a guy will be taken number 1 who really isn't the number 1 prospect in the draft, but the team that's drafting number 1 is trying to manipulate their bonus pool money and saving it for later to give a guy above slot who might be a guy, a tough signable type of guy, but if you give him above slot, you might end up signing him. But Rock Chowalski of UCLA is looked at right now as mock number 1 to the White Sox. You don't find the first SEC player until you get down to, where are we at here? Number 8. Chris Hackapin, second baseman, Texas A&M. Then you get Tyler Bell, number 9, to the Atlanta Braves from the University of Kentucky. Derek Curiel, the center fielder from LSU, 11, mocked to the Washington Nationals. Justin LeBron, who had a really nice year as a shortstop at Alabama, ranked 8th overall, but mocked 12th to the LA Angels. Then you get Ryder Helfrich, the catcher from Arkansas, mocked 13th to St. Louis. Hunter Dietz, left-handed pitcher, Arkansas, to the Diamondbacks at 15. Liam Peterson, right-hander, Florida, 16th to Texas. Daniel Jackson had a phenomenal year. Power, speed, the catcher from Georgia. Best offensive player, arguably, in college baseball. Jackson mocked 17th to the Houston Astros. And then Ace Reese, third baseman, mocked 20th to the Boston Red Sox. So in top 20, that's the SEC players in that situation. Now, again, it's just a different kind of draft, man. It just is. So we'll see how it plays itself. I'll just give you a little love there for the different SEC players in the upcoming MLB draft. Again, it's Saturday. South Carolina, we'll see. They could lose some guys. I mean, really, if you get out of it without losing anybody, I'd be shocked. I could see 1 or 2 guys who get drafted, like the bonus pool slot money they're getting, like where they get the position they were drafted, and they go. Mostly it'll be second day. So we'll see where it ends up. All right, that's your drive around the SEC. We'll come back, take a look at the schedule tonight in Major League Baseball, get you updated on the World Cup, and then get on out of here. Oh, yeah, I want to update the Twitter poll as well that we were talking about from the other day. You can see it at 107.5 The Game. All that's coming up in our final segment of the week on the postgame show with Terry Ford. Thanks for hanging with us on the Game Network, at the Game TV Radio on YouTube. Finishing up the day, the week here on the post-game show. Again, Jay will be back on Monday to hang with us after a week at the beach. Be a bronze 10 god. Okay, maybe not, but it sounded good. Real quick, World Cup update. Spain held on to beat Belgium 2-1. Mikel Merino scored the go-ahead goal. Also had the same deal against Portugal in the round of 16. So Spain moves on to face France. That one should be a lot of fun. And that's the only World Cup tilt for today. Tomorrow, there's two of them, if what's left of my memory serves me. You get Norway, England, 5 p.m., then 9 p.m., Argentina, Switzerland. Argentina, huge favorite. England is a favorite, but it's a slight favorite. It feels like Argentina should get through, along with Spain and France. Could be England, could be Norway, we'll see. Harry Kane, I think I called him Keane earlier. Does Harry Kane get through? Or is our boy Haaland from Norway with the, is that more of a man bun or like a mini ponytail? But Harry Kane, the superstar with England, our boy Haaland in Norway. Obviously, Messi will move through if Argentina wins. Mbappe, Yamal for Spain. Was he like 12? It's ridiculous how young he is. But anyway, that's where it's at in the World Cup right now. We will know the Final Four, obviously, by late Saturday night. All right, Major League Baseball tonight. The Atlanta Braves coming off winning a series over the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now we'll go to St. Louis to take on the Cardinals. Chris Sale on the hill for Atlanta, and Chris Sale's just being Chris Sale. 2.27 ERA this year, a whip of only 1.12. Sale has been excellent. Last two starts a little creaky, 5 innings, 3 earned runs. But before that, Sale had been flowing. Like 16 and almost 17 in the third inning. He's only given up 3 earned runs. And then he's hit a little rocky patch, but still having an excellent season for the Atlanta Braves. Can the Braves build upon winning 2 out of 3 from the Pirates? We'll see. The Cardinals are above 500. They've been a nice story, a good young core, it seems like. Kyle Leahy, who's had a solid season. Below average ERA, 3.86, 7-4 record. Doesn't strike out a ton of folks. His whip's a little high, though. He puts runners on. He just seems to escape. So Kyle Leahy on the mound for St. Louis. And if you look at the National League, we said the Cardinals are above 500. They're sitting in third place right now in the National League Central, and they're way back of the Brewers, 10.5 games behind Milwaukee. Cubs are 7 off the pace, sitting in second, while the Braves still hold that 3-game lead over the Phillies and the Marlins. In the wild card chase, though, it's a little different. The Cardinals are but 3 games out, so they have a chance. Right now, if the season ended today, the Cubs, Phillies, and Marlins would be the wild card teams out of the National League, with the Cardinals, again, 3 games back. So the Braves, again, it's been a rough road here in the last month. Still leading the division by 3. A big lead has dwindled a ton. And right now in the National League, the Dodgers have the best record. The Brewers, the second best record. And then the Braves. And it's interesting in Major League Baseball as we almost hit the All-Star break. And we're past the halfway point. Only 2 teams are playing over 600 baseball. That's the Brewers and the Dodgers. The American League's a mess, like I said. The Rays have the best record in the American League. But the other divisions, the White Sox are 2 games over 500, and they lead the AL Central. The Rangers are 1 game over 500. They lead the AL West. It's just, the American League is just, right now, the A's are 11 games under 500, but only 5.5 games out of the wild card. That's how bad the American League is right now. But again, the Braves tonight, man, the Braves are like, man, wish we were in the American League. If the Braves were in the American League, they have the second best record in the AL behind Tampa. So, anyway, that's what's going on tonight in Major League Baseball. All right, Twitter poll. We put this up the other day, and we did not get back to it, and I blame Terry Ford. Absolutely blame Terry Ford for not getting back to it. That guy. All right, we asked, of course, our Twitter polls are sponsored by IntelliSystems. Local human support, your business protected from cyber threats. If not, hit up IntelliSystems. The IntelliSystems poll question of the day. Athlon Sports has the Gamecocks facing Nebraska in the Music City Bowl. Would you be satisfied with the season if that was the result? Your three options were depends on how we get there, no, and yes. And thank you very much. We had over 109 votes. About 1,500 folks viewed the results, and thank you very much for your participation. The winner by 1% was depends how we get there, 37%. No was 36%. Yes was 28%. So, I mean, this was one of our closer ones in regard to all three choices. And obviously you only had a 37-36% difference between depends on how we get there and no. And I said, look, getting to a bowl game, I understand after last year, to some people that's a good thing. That's great. Back to a bowl game, progress, baby. Woo! And to some, it's like, Music City Bowl, seriously? We want to get to the college football playoff. You got a bunch of guys that could get drafted in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. We got talent. And we go to the Music City Bowl? Really? I ain't down with that. But then I would vote for depends on how you get there. Like if you win 8 games, go to the Music City Bowl, you finish 8-4, which would be double last year's win total. And let's say you get an upset or two along the way. You beat everybody you should beat. You upset a couple, and then you lose the games you probably should lose. And you don't get blown out or embarrassed or de-pantsed or anything. I think that would be just fine. Now, if you go to the Music City Bowl and you win 7 games, and you let Alabama off the hook again in Tuscaloosa, or you had A&M beat here and you blew that one late, or maybe, God forbid, you got upset in a game like at Arkansas. That's different. Then you're like, ooh, you left a lot on the table. So it depends on how you get there, I think. But the idea of just saying it out loud, Music City Bowl, in our college football playoff or bust world, that's a downer. Now, last year, Tennessee won 8 games and went to the Music City Bowl, and they looked at their season as a huge disappointment because Tennessee, they kind of ended the season with like 4 flat tires and leaking oil. That's another part. Remember when South Carolina won 8 games in that Spencer Rattler year, it had those 2 big wins over top 10 teams at the end. You finish with a flurry. Everybody's like, yeah, baby. That's the way you end it. Because it ended on such a high note. And then, of course, so many guys didn't play in the Gator Bowl against Notre Dame. But that season ended on a high note, just like the 6-game winning streak at the end of 24. Yeah, you lost Illinois in the bowl game, but still, you had a great streak down the season. And when you ended on a heater like that, you feel good. So I am in the camp of let's see how you get to that point. And then you go from there. Hey, thanks for hanging this week, putting up with me as I just blab by myself with Jay on vacation. Thanks to the folks on the chat, the text line, Twitter, everybody who gets involved on our little radio get-together. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Enjoy yourself. Have fun. Relax. Chill out. We'll start this again Monday at 3 here on the Game Network, at the Game TV Radio and YouTube, and our affiliates in Charleston, Florence, Myrtle Beach. Talk to you later.